This is critical. The Spanish player, he has to win this game to have any hopes of taking it to tiebreaks. Young Krzysztof Duda is up by 2 points. He have won both game 1 and game 2. And with the black pieces here, I can see that Duda has played very quickly so far.
Yeah, and I must admit, I'm very surprised by the choice of opening by David Anton, because this is quite a well-known line, and I'm not sure this exact position, but at least a couple of moves ago, Duda had this in last season's tour. Duda, this is part of his solid repertoire. The top players in the world, they have different types of opening repertoires. They have openings for must-win situations, they have openings to be solid, and this is one of Duda's favourites when he wants to be solid. And look at this, we're about to see a series of mass exchanges on the C3 square. White's knight is about to get captured. And on that square, the knights will come off, a set of bishops will come off, maybe even queens will come off. And because David Anton needs to win, that's not a good sign. Exchanges only help black edge closer to that draw. And there we go. Knights have left the board, bishops have left the board. Is David Anton going to trade the queens now? Yes, he has to. White's queen was just too passive. And Duda doesn't even trade the queens. He takes off a pawn. He has studied this before. Look at his clock time, 16 minutes now, gaining time. And yeah,
you're right about him studying this game. I've actually, looking at this, he's played this with the white pieces himself against Alexander Predka in the World Championship.
I think when I played against him in 2017 as well, Duda, I remember he'd played this line already, or I mean, the beginning of this line, not up to this position. So yeah, David Anton, I'm surprised he spent so much time on the clock. Maybe just, I don't want to say lack of research, but yeah, maybe just a poor opening decision in a must-win situation. Just allowing so many pieces and pawns to be traded already at this early stage, and also walking into his opponent's home territory, something he's played many times before.
Yeah, and one interesting thing is I'm just checking above, and I can see that Duda has had this with the black pieces as well against the Wesley. So you're right, last year's tour.
We commentated on that game.
You have a better memory than me, David. No. They all merge into one.
I have selective memory. I only remember the exciting games and my wins, not the losses. So, OK, White's rook's attacking the black queen, but the black queen does have an escape route. She has 2 safe squares to run to now. She has to go back on this dark square diagonal. White is a pawn down temporarily, but White can regain the pawn. And the problem is running out of pieces. He needs to win, David Anton. He's played a great tournament so far. I think he's gained some of the most points in terms of the tour ratings. And yeah, it looks like, unfortunately, this might be the end of his journey.
Yeah, it does look like this, because it's a very, very difficult position. It's just to win, actually. I mean, it requires a lot of assistance from your opponent, just because of the fact that, like you say, there aren't too many minor pieces on the board. And the position is relatively simple. If more trades are made, then the margin for winning becomes even lower.
Yeah, the problem for White is that if the queens come off, it's going to be a draw. If the rooks come off, it's going to be a draw. If the bishops come off, it's going to be a draw. You need to keep all the pieces on the board, but it's just going to be impossible to do that. There are too many open lines. Black can pretty much force you to make exchanges, make some trades. And I mean, the slight advantage for White here, the reason the evaluation bar gives White a tiny preference, is that White's pawn structure is better. Black has 2 isolated pawns on the A file and the D file. White only has 1 isolated pawn, but it's an insignificant advantage. It's purely symbolic here. It doesn't actually kind of turn into anything tangible. And OK, White now offering a queen trade. This could be accepted. You don't even need to go for it yet with Black. You can allow this to happen on your own terms. But you can tell even on David Anton's body language, he's not too excited about his chances here. He knows that with best play, this should be a draw. Duda, I think this is quite instructive as well. Just taking a time out, calming himself down. He knows he's had a great opening. He's rock solid in this position, and he's just a few accurate moves away from the semi-finals.
And I mean, still more than 15 minutes on the clock, more than the time he started with in this game in move 21. And actually seeing the second game they played as well, Duda won that game with more than 7 minutes left on the clock. So he's apparently playing very fast and confident today.
Yeah, maybe he's been taking a leaf out of Levon Aronian's book, Levon on the tour last year, and super impressive, just playing instantly, playing on his opponent's nerves, playing on their time trouble. It takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of confidence to kind of trust your instincts and not kind of double check everything, over-calculate, overthink. But yeah, Duda, he slowed down at the right moment as well, just before this queen trade.
It's actually the first new move of the game. You know, this hasn't been played before. Most other people, you know, Wesley actually moved his rook to the middle of the board, and that game actually was a win for Wesley eventually.
Okay, this rook?
The other rook, the C2 rook, moved to D2, yeah.
So White did win that one, but I think that's with a lot of help from Black, unfortunately. So David Anton lifting the queen up. I don't think Black should rush to trade and take these off the board. Maybe it's okay as well. I guess you can just shuffle your rook across and try and go after White's weak pawn here. But the reason I don't want to do this is because instead of lifting this rook across, if you want to go for the more natural other rook, then suddenly there is a small problem after a trade of rooks here. You cannot actually grab this pawn because of something we've talked about quite a lot, and it's the back rank checkmate. This king has no breathing space, and it actually gets trapped on this back rank. So you can't go for all these trades immediately. You have to be a bit sneaky about it for Black. You need to get this position, but you need to have one of your pawns pushed forward in order for your king to escape. So in the current position, I'm expecting Duda maybe to trade, or I was going to say the other option, most likely go active with your queen. You want the queens off, but more importantly, you want this pawn off the board. The only way White will win this game is actually if this pawn later on becomes a passed pawn. So you want to remove all potential danger in the endgame. You want to remove it now. So if these pawns get exchanged, if this disappears and this disappears, Black is just very, very close to the draw now.
All right. And some other games. Game 3s have also started. Liam Le against David Navarro. Actually, already the bar over to Liam Le's side. They are tied before this game. So anything can still happen in that match. And Ding and Van Forest also started Game 3. Ding is up by 1 point. And if he wins this game, he will be ready for the semi-final to face either Magnus Carlsen or Hans Niemann. All right, but in this one, it's looking like it's going to be a short day, I guess, then for young Krzysztof Duda to get to the semi-finals.
Yeah, it's looking like that, and that's definitely something that we at home, the observers, should be feeling. But I can tell you, young Krzysztof Duda should not be thinking like that.
Right.
Instead, he needs to be thinking about the game and just taking it on a move-by-move basis. He can think about the semi-finals when he gets there. Until then, until it's kind of signed, sealed and delivered, he needs to just focus on what needs to be done. And that is just to address the issues. And at the minute, as David highlighted, it's just all about getting rid of that one remaining pawn on the left side of the board. And he's doing this.
Yeah, he's doing it very effectively. And I've been very dismissive of White's chances. Oh, look at David Anton there. He's not happy at all. He knows this is about to be a draw. But remember, Duda did lose from a similar position to this in the past, last season against Wesley. So that was actually just due to a big kind of blunder, a bit of just maybe miscalculation. But this game, we're headed to a draw almost instantly. The queens have come off, a set of pawns have come off. The last 2 pawns remaining, I mean, everything's symmetrical now on the right side of the board, on the right half. All that's remaining are these 2 other pawns on the queen side, and those guys are destined to get traded off. White's pawn, White's B pawn, is eyed up by the Black bishop. And
is there any hope now that the bishop is attacking the rook? And, you know, the one defender of the A7 pawn is going to be moving.
Possibly. Problem is, the Black rook could just sidestep 1 square, just attack that White B pawn, or Black can even offer a trade of bishops, maybe. You have to be slightly careful in that regard. But actually, off the trade of bishops, yeah, it's still a draw, but White does have 1 trick at least up his sleeve. So, OK, just move the Black rook onto the B file, temporarily go 1 pawn down, but the White pawn is just too weak, unfortunately. So we'll see that happen, I think, in a moment. The 1 trick, let's just show it, because it is a bit flashy, is that if Black does jump into the center, then White does have an opportunity to play rook takes pawn. Really flashy, and it's all to do with the back rank that we mentioned. Note how White's king is also a bit trapped behind its own pawns, but Black can't break through because this square, which you want to use to check, is actually covered by White's bishop. So Black can't checkmate, whereas White definitely can. After rook takes rook, this ends in back rank mate. Also, bishop takes bishop does end in back rank mate too. You remove this defender in the corner after rook takes, bishop takes, and now checkmate on the next turn. The king trapped. So actually, that would be a bit of a blunder. And I don't think young Krzysztof Duda is going to fall for it. All he needs to do is move this rook out of the eye line of the White bishop. For example, step it across, or to this square. He's actually setting a trap himself, very sneaky. Now rook takes pawn is simply going to be met by a rook check. And now white is the one back rank checkmated. And it's all about these kings. The kings lacking breathing space, lacking air. And that means white can't go pawn hunting. And if white can't go pawn hunting, he has to take a timeout and push this guy forward. That happens, and then black now can simply go after this white b pawn. You go for it with this rook, because the other rook will keep guard of the black king on the top row, on the 8th rank.
Yeah, totally agree with that philosophy. And Duda does indeed play the rook move you suggested. And I just wanted to show you a selfie from Cupido Baron, who says that Garfield from Port Elizabeth, okay, you see rook takes pawn being played, South Africa, wonders why I make a big fuss about the chess and not give him some attention. Oh, we have a jealous cat. And okay, so whilst I was talking, we have a big flurry of trades and everything is level.
Yeah, this is one of the most drawish positions in chess you will ever see. Simply, all the pawns are getting traded, the rooks have come off. David Anton knows his tournament is about to be over. Duda is 1 or 2 moves away now from the semi-finals. We're just going to see the players repeat. There's simply not enough material left to deliver checkmate. And there we go, we have the draw.
Will we see some celebration from young Krzysztof Duda? No, he just runs off. And look at David Anton, disappointed. Of course, I think this was the first time David Anton has made it to the knockout stage, but it ends here in the quarterfinals in the Charity Cup. Young Krzysztof Duda has been on fire today. Played 3